Hey guys, Jacob Wheeler here today. We're going to talk to you a little bit about fishing mats. And flipping mats, heavy covers is a very important part of fishing. I mean, that's where a lot of the big fish live. Whether you're in Florida, obviously that's the #1 place for flipping heavy cover and flipping matted vegetation, but all the way up in New York, anywhere there's matted vegetation, even the Tennessee River, it's a big player, and you got to know the ins and the outs to how to catch these fish. So let's jump in. All right, let's start with weights. Right here, I got a combination of weights. I got them ranging from 1 ounce to 2.5 ounces. And really, you know, a 2.5 ounce weight, you look at that thing, that's like a bowling ball. You know, you're gonna drop that thing in there and it's gonna make a giant wake. You know, this is for special circumstances. I've caught a few fish throwing a 2.5. This is more for, you know, pretty much strictly fishing Florida. Sometimes on the Tennessee River when the water drops in the fall, you know, talking about October, it's hard to get through some of those mats. A 2.5 is necessary, but for me, mostly it's gonna be those thick hyacinths, sometimes a really thick hydrilla that you can't get through. That's the one you're gonna throw that 2.5 ounce. Now, a 2 ounce is actually more, it's become more that 1.5 ounces. 1.5 ounces used to be standard, but a 2 ounce, especially in Florida, flipping hyacinths, it's really about a law of averages. You know, when you're picking a weight and the size of your weight, it's simply about how many times. So if I'm flipping 1.5 ounces and I can only get through that mat 5 out of 10 times, and I can get through the mat 10 out of 10 times with a 2 ounce, the law of averages says you're gonna catch more fish on a 2 ounce weight. So really, I'm gonna try to get away with the lightest weight possible, but at the end of the day, if you can't get through there enough times, you gotta step up your weight. Next is gonna be choosing your bait selection. You know, really, when you're flipping mats, there's really about 3 different categories that I look at. Actually, I made a bait specifically for that, to flip mats. But, you know, it's really just 3 different categories of picking and selecting a bait. First off is gonna be, you know, your Beaver style baits or your glide baits. You know, something like this, or you know, where it's connected, that it's gonna slither through that cover and it's gonna glide. You know, that's a really good action for getting those fish to bite. That's a great way to catch them, but sometimes that's not what they want. Next would be, you know, actually having something similar, and I'll rip this off real quick, is more having let me set it up for you, like a crawl style bait. You know, this is just like a crawl, has a little flapping crawl, has a little action. You know, some days when they're really aggressive, they're gonna want something more like a crawdad or something with a little bit more flap. That's a really big thing when they get a lot more aggressive, you get those hot days, you know, it's warming up in the springtime. That's more than likely when I'm gonna pick up that flapping style crawl bait and get a little bit, or if the water's a little bit muddier and I need a little bit more vibration, you know, that's when I'm gonna pick up something with that, you know, with that flapping crawl sort of action. And then last but not least is more of like a smaller profile. This is a smaller profile Beaver style, actually trimmed down to what I had at Punch Out Crawl. And what it does is it's still a gliding bait, but it's super small. You know, a lot of times when you're in these matted vegetation areas, in these mats, they have a lot of grass shrimp in them, you know, freshwater shrimp. They have a lot of crawdads, and sometimes that smaller profile. This is normally, when I'm gonna throw a smaller profile flipping bait, is normally during cold fronts. When it gets really cold and they don't wanna bite, you know, a lot of times flipping in those places and bringing it to the top of the mat and shaking that little dude, you know, is the ticket in getting bit. So we've talked about, you know, our bait selection, we've talked about weight size. Now ultimately it comes down to color choice. And really when you're flipping mats, there's only, you know, a few different colors that I'm gonna flip. Most important thing is normally throwing or flipping something dark, especially under the thicker the mat. You know, if you're flipping lily pads and you have some sunlight coming through, then of course that, you know, you can throw lighten it up, the water's clear and whatnot. But for me, it's pretty standard. You know, your regular black and blues, you know, if the shad are pretty present, or you have a really sunny day, a black, blue, silver, that little silver glimmer sometimes can really get those fish and get their attention. You know, Bama bug. This is a great color when the water's just a little bit off colored, but you know, still pretty clear. If I feel like I'm fishing maybe milfoil, that's when I'm gonna flip that Bama bug, because that milfoil, you know, a lot of times those mats are a little bit more sparse. It's a great color when those fish, maybe switching it up and letting those fish see something a little bit different. And then last but not least for me, when I'm up north, is like a Minnesota Flash or a magic craw color. And that's a really great color when you have clear water and northern bass. I mean, it seems to work, and they're on bluegill, because that just looks like a bluegill so much that I've had really good luck with that. But keeping it simple, and ultimately keeping it something darker, one side of it being pretty dark to where it can silhouette underneath that mat, is super key in getting bit when you're flipping that heavy cover.